The alien market was alive with noise, smell, and shadows. Merchants shouted in harsh voices, trying to sell everything from glowing fruits to broken machines. Creatures with many eyes and claws moved through the crowd, their steps heavy on the cracked stone floor, the smell of roasted meat mixed with the stench of sweat and rusted metal. It was a place where anything could be bought or sold, including life itself. In the center of the market stood a rusty cage. Inside the cage, a young, alien girl sat curled up, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin was pale, marked with bruises, her eyes wide with fear. A wooden tag hung on the cage door, painted with crude red letters. The words read, "For slaughter." The crowd laughed each time they passed her. Some threw scraps of old bread at her. Others tapped the cage to make her flinch. To them, she was not a person. She was only meat to be cut. Among the noise, a human walked slowly through the rows of stalls. He wore a simple coat, dust clinging to the fabric. His boots were worn from long journeys. His eyes tired but sharp. He had no name in the market, no friends, and no reason to stop. Yet when his gaze fell on the cage, his steps froze. For a moment, the noise of the market faded. All he could see was the trembling figure of the girl. Her small fingers clutched the metal bars as if hoping someone would pull her out. The alien seller noticed his stare and grinned with sharp teeth. "Interested human?" the seller hissed. "Cheap meat, young and soft, pay now and she is yours." The words struck like knives. The human felt anger rise in his chest, but he said nothing. He took one step closer, his shadow falling over the cage. The girl lifted, her head, her eyes filled with silent pleading. But there was also fear. She did not know if he was another buyer, another monster, or her last chance. The crowd began to gather, sensing something unusual. They whispered and laughed, waiting to see if the human would take the offer. One alien shouted, "Don't waste coin, human, the butcher shop sells better cuts." Another mocked, "Maybe humans eat raw. Maybe he likes her alive." The laughter echoed cruel and sharp. The girl closed her eyes, wishing she could disappear. The human's hands tightened into fists. He had walked many worlds, seen much cruelty. But this was worse than war. This was a child being treated as nothing, more than food. He remembered the nights he had gone hungry as a boy. He remembered his mother's words. "No one deserves to starve, no one deserves chains." Those words now rang in his ears as he stared at the cage. The seller banged the metal bars with a stick, making the girl cry out. "See? Fresh and alive," the seller said. "Still has fight, but not for long." The human stepped forward until he was face to face with the seller. "How much?" he asked, his voice low but firm. The crowd gasped. Some laughed louder. The seller's grin widened, sensing profit. "You want her? Then pay with everything you have." The human reached into his coat and pulled out a small pouch. Inside were the last of his credits, coins he had saved for food and shelter, his future, his survival, all inside that pouch. He looked at the girl once more, saw the tears sliding down her face, and then without hesitation, he threw the pouch onto the table, the coins scattered, ringing like broken bells. The seller's eyes gleamed as he scooped them up. "Yours now, human, take your meat." The cage door creaked open. The girl did not move. Her body shook as if she expected pain. The human knelt, his voice softer now. "You're free," he said, though the words sounded strange in this place. She looked at him with disbelief, her lips trembling. Free? Could it be true? The crowd began to shout, angry and confused. "Why save her?" one voice roared. "He wasted coin," another spat. But the human ignored them. He reached out his hand, waiting. For a long moment, the girl did not move. Then slowly, with trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his. The touch was cold, fragile but alive. Together they stepped out of the cage. The market noise grew louder, angrier. Shadows moved among the stalls, eyes watching. The human knew this was only the beginning. He had broken a rule, defied a world that saw life as nothing more than meat, and for that, a storm was coming. The market did not stay silent when the cage opened. The moment the human stepped forward with the alien girl, a roar rose from the crowd, shouts echoed. Coins clattered to the ground and angry faces turned toward him. To the buyers and sellers, this was no rescue. It was a crime. The rule of the market was clear. No life could be spared, only traded, only consumed. The seller laughed loudly, his sharp teeth flashing in the light. "Take her, human, take your meat," he sneered, "but remember, you will be hunted for this." The crowd jeered, some spitting on the ground, others throwing pebbles at the human's back. The girl shrank behind him, her thin body shaking, her eyes darting around like a trapped bird. Everywhere she looked, she saw enemies. She could not believe this man wanted to help her. Was it another trick, another cruel game before the end? The human kept his head low, his jaw tight. He led her away from the center of the market, step by step, but the voices followed, angry and mocking. He could hear them yelling, "The butcher will come for him. No one cheats the market. That girl belongs to death." Each word cut deeper, reminding him of the danger he had chosen. He could have walked past, he could have ignored her, but something inside him refused. He had made his decision, and there was no turning back. The girl stumbled as they reached a narrow alley, her legs weak from hunger, her throat dry from days without water. The human stopped and pulled a flask from his coat. He handed it to her. Without a word, she looked at him with suspicion, afraid to touch it. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice so soft it was almost lost in the noise. He crouched down to meet her eyes. "I don't want anything," he said slowly. "I couldn't leave you in that cage." Her lips trembled. She gripped the flask, and for the first time in days she drank. Behind them, footsteps echoed, heavier now, organized. The human knew what that meant. The enforcers, the hired guards of the market. They were not simple thieves or traitors, they were killers who kept order through fear. If they caught him, they would take the girl back, and him too, perhaps as punishment for breaking the trade. He looked at the girl, who wiped her mouth with shaking hands, her eyes still wide with doubt, but something new appeared there too. A spark of hope, she whispered. "They will kill you because of me." He gave a small smile, tired but firm. "Then I'll make sure they don't," he answered. The alley opened into another section of the market, darker and quieter. Shadows stretched across broken walls, and strange lights flickered in the distance. Merchants here sold darker goods, knives, chains, poisons. Some of them looked up as the human passed, their eyes narrowing at the sight of the girl. One merchant called out, "You can still trade her, human, before the enforcers come. Take your profit now." Another laughed, "Better cut her throat yourself before they take both of you." The human ignored them all, but the girl's hands clutched tighter at his coat. She did not understand why he risked himself. Why would anyone care for someone marked only for slaughter? At the edge of the darker stalls, the sound of boots thundered. 4 enforcers appeared, tall, armored aliens with glowing weapons. Their eyes burned with cruel light, their voices carried like thunder. "Stop, human," one growled. "You bought the meat, but you cannot take it from this place." The girl gasped and stepped back, pressing against the wall. The human stepped forward. Blocking their view of her, his heart raced, but his voice stayed calm. "She is mine, I paid, and I will take her," he said. The enforcers laughed, sharp and echoing. "No one takes life from the market." Another said, "You broke the law, now you pay." The crowd began to gather again, whispering, pointing, waiting. Some wanted to see blood, others wanted to see the human fall. The girl's breath came fast, her small hands pulling at his sleeve. "Please, leave me," she begged. "If they kill you, I will never forgive myself." But the human shook his head slowly. "I already chose," he said softly. "I won't give you back, not to them." The enforcers lifted their weapons, the light glowing brighter. The air grew tense, the crowd silent. The girl's knees weakened, her heart pounded so loud she thought it would burst. For her, this was the moment she had always feared. For him, this was the moment he had already accepted. His decision was clear, his path set. He would stand, even if it cost him his life. The silence broke when one enforcer lunged forward. The human grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her into a side street. Blades cut the air behind them. Sparks flew as energy slammed into the walls. The crowd screamed and scattered as the chase began. The girl stumbled again, but he did not let go. His grip was firm, his pace unbroken. He had made his decision in the cage. Now he had to live, or die, with it. The alleys twisted like the veins of a dying city. Broken walls leaned inward, dripping with moisture, and the air smelled of rust and smoke. The human pulled the girl forward, his hand gripping hers tightly. Behind them, the heavy boots of the enforcers slammed against the stones. Their shouts echoed through the passage, harsh and merciless. "Run," the human said. His voice low but sharp. The girl stumbled but forced her legs to move, her breath quick and shallow. Her thin frame shook with every step, yet she held on. Fear pushed her faster than strength ever could. Her bare feet cut against sharp rocks, leaving faint trails of blood. Still she did not stop. The crowd of the market had not followed, but their whispers had spread. Doors slammed shut, windows closed, as if the whole city had decided to turn away. No one wanted to help. No one dared to stand against the law of the market. Every shadow seemed to hide an enemy. Every turn felt like a trap. The human led her through a narrow gap between two collapsing buildings. The walls scraped his shoulders, and the girl's breath caught as the stones tore at her arms. They emerged into another alley, darker than before. The enforcers' lights glowed at the far end, their voices rising. "Nowhere to run, human," one shouted. "Give her back and we may let you live." The girl froze, her legs refusing to move. Her heart screamed that it was over, but the human turned to her, his eyes fierce. "Do you want to die in a cage," he asked, "or take one more step with me?" Her lips parted. No words came out, but she nodded. He pulled her forward again, and together they darted into the maze of alleys. The city above them groaned with old machinery, pipes leaking steam, the sound of dripping water mixed with the pounding of boots behind. The girl's chest ached, every breath like fire. She whispered between gasps, "Why do you keep me? Why not leave me?" The human did not look back, his voice steady. "Because you deserve more than chains, because no one deserves to be slaughtered." Her eyes filled with tears, words she had never heard before echoing in her heart. They turned a sharp corner and nearly collided with a pile of broken crates. The human shoved them aside, the noise loud, too loud. The enforcers were close now, their shadows stretching like claws against the walls. The girl's hands trembled as she clutched his coat. "They will kill you," she whispered again, but he only shook his head. "If they catch me, then they will have to fight me first." The alley opened into a wider street lit by dim orange lamps. Merchants quickly pulled their stalls back, not wanting to be caught in the chase. The human and the girl sprinted across the open space, but energy bolts struck the ground near their feet, sparks flashing. The girl screamed, almost falling, but he dragged her upright. The enforcers' voices grew louder. "Stop, human, you cannot escape." He spotted another narrow path, hidden between a row of rusted doors. Without hesitation, he pushed through, pulling her behind. This alley was even darker, filled with smoke from burning trash. The walls were marked with strange symbols, warnings from gangs, but none of it mattered. Only the sound of running, only survival. The girl's body begged her to stop, but her spirit clung to his strength. Each time she faltered, his grip pulled her forward. Her trust, fragile as glass, began to form with every desperate step. She whispered, "If we escape, where will we go?" His answer came quick. "Anywhere the market cannot reach us." She had never dreamed of anywhere. Her world had always been cages and fear. Behind them, the enforcers fired again, walls exploding with sparks. The human ducked, shielding her with his body. A shard of stone sliced his arm, blood dripping. He clenched his jaw, forcing the pain away. The girl saw the red stain and cried out, "You are hurt." He only replied, "Better me than you." They reached a dead end, the wall towering high. The girl's heart sank, despair crushing her chest. The enforcers' boots grew louder, closer, victory in their voices, but the human's eyes scanned the wall quickly. He spotted a broken ladder, half buried in the rubble. "Climb," he ordered, lifting her toward it. Her hands shook, her body weak, but she obeyed. Every rung cut into her skin, but she climbed. Below her, the human stayed, waiting until she was halfway. Then he followed, his weight making the ladder groan. The enforcers turned the corner and saw them, their weapons glowing. "Shoot them down," one barked. Energy bolts flew, striking the wall, shaking the ladder. The girl screamed, almost losing her grip, but the human pushed her upward. "Don't stop," he shouted, his voice like steel. She climbed higher, tears burning her eyes. At the top, they scrambled, onto a roof of broken tiles. The city stretched out before them, endless, dangerous, and unknown. But for the first time, the girl felt a strange breath of freedom. Her chest still hurt, her legs still trembled, yet hope flickered. The human stood beside her, blood on his arm, his face grim. The enforcers shouted, below, their voices full of rage. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The rooftop cracked beneath their feet as they ran. Loose tiles slid off and shattered against the streets below. The human gripped the girl's hand, pulling her forward across the uneven surface. Behind them, the enforcers' shout still echoed, though their heavy armor slowed them from climbing. For now, there was a little distance, but not safety. The girl's chest rose and fell with sharp breaths, her thin frame almost collapsing. With every step, her bare feet were cut and bleeding, yet she pushed herself to keep up. Fear gave her strength. But fear could not carry her forever. The human knew this, and his eyes scanned the city beyond the market, searching, far away, past broken towers and cracked bridges. He saw the outline of the outer ruins, abandoned shelters, forgotten by law and trade. If they could reach that place, maybe they could vanish, at least for one night. They dropped down from the roof into a narrow street. The human caught the girl before she fell, her legs trembling too much to hold her weight. "We can't stop here," he said quietly. "They will search every corner." The girl nodded weakly, though her lips were pale and her eyes clouded with exhaustion. Her voice trembled as she whispered, Why do you keep risking this?" The human looked at her for a long moment, then answered, "Because I know what it feels like to be trapped, and I swore I would never walk away again." The alleys grew quieter the farther they moved from the market. No merchants, no laughter, only silence broken by the drip of water and the scurry of rats. Broken lanterns swung on rusty chains, casting long, trembling shadows. Every sound made the girl flinch. Every flicker of light made her expect a hand reaching for her. The human stayed alert, his ears sharp for footsteps, his hand close to the small knife hidden in his coat. At last, they reached the edge of the ruined quarter. Crumbling walls rose. Around them, roofs caved in, doors hanging broken. The girl stared at the ruins with wide eyes. "This place, no one lives here," she whispered. "That is why it may keep us safe," he replied, leading her inside. They entered an old building, its walls cracked and blackened from fire. Inside, dust lay thick on the floor, and broken furniture leaned against the corners. The girl hesitated at the doorway, fear mixing with disbelief. For so long she had been inside cages. Now she was free to walk into a place no one claimed. Her steps were slow, as if she expected chains to fall again at any moment. The human searched quickly, checking broken windows, listening for pursuers. Satisfied they were alone, he turned back to her. She stood in the center of the room, hugging herself, her eyes scanning every corner as if shadows hid claws. He knelt and pulled a small cloth from his pack, wrapping it gently around her bleeding feet. She watched him in silence, her lips trembling, until at last she whispered, You don't want to eat me." The words cut him deeper than any blade. He looked at her firmly and shook his head. "No, I want you to live." The girl's hands trembled, as if she could not believe the sound of those words. Her eyes filled, with tears she did not allow to fall. For a long moment there was silence between them, broken only by the crackle of distant fire outside. Then she spoke again, her voice fragile. "My family, they were taken too. Some sold, some killed. I was left alive because they said young flesh sells better. Her body shook as she spoke, and she pressed her hands against her face. I thought I would never leave that cage. The human listened, without interrupting, his heart heavy. Her pain was raw, and he knew no words could erase it, but he let her speak, because silence had already stolen too much of her life. Suddenly, the silence of the ruins broke. Outside, faint lights flickered in the distance, moving closer. The girl froze, her body tensing. "Are they here?" she whispered, fear flooding her voice. The human moved to the window and peered. Through the cracks, strange blue lights moved slowly through the broken streets, the glow of scanners searching. "They are hunting us," he said softly. "We cannot stay here long." The girl's knees gave out and she fell to the floor, her hands covering her face. "They will find us, and when they do, they will kill you first, and I will go back to the cage." Her voice was full of despair, shaking like a candle flame in the wind. The human crouched in front of her, his voice calm but fierce. "No, we will not go back, not while I can still stand." Her eyes lifted to meet his, and for the first time she saw not only defiance, but something stronger, hope. It was a fragile hope, but it burned brighter than the darkness pressing in on them. The lights outside grew closer, shadows stretching across the broken walls. The human tightened his grip on the knife hidden in his hand. The girl trembled but moved closer to him as if his presence alone could shield her from the storm. In that ruined shelter, hunted and cornered, they waited, their breaths slow, their hearts heavy, knowing the night was not finished with them. Not yet. The ruined shelter groaned in the wind, its walls cracked and weak. Shadows moved across the broken ceiling, and the faint glow of scanners still passed outside. The girl sat close to the human, her knees pulled up, her eyes never leaving the door. Every creak of wood made her flinch. Every gust of wind made her heart race. Yet she did not let go of his sleeve, holding it with trembling fingers. The human listened carefully, his senses sharp. The enforcers were near, but not yet inside, their voices echoing faintly through the empty streets. He knew they could not stay long, but he also knew the girl could not run much farther. Her body was too weak, her spirit too fragile. They needed rest, even if the night gave them none. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small ration pack. It was all he had left, dried bread, stale but still food. He broke it in half and handed a piece to the girl. At first she only stared at it, her lips parted, her hands frozen. Food had always come as scraps tossed at her cage, never offered with kindness. Her throat tightened, and slowly she took it, her hands shaking. She bit into it carefully, chewing, slowly as if afraid it would be taken back. Tears filled her eyes, not from the taste, but from the simple act of being fed like a person. The human ate his share quietly, his eyes never leaving the broken window. He knew sharing his food meant hunger for himself later, but seeing her eat gave him a strange warmth inside. For a moment, he almost forgot the danger outside. Almost. The girl swallowed and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "You could have left me," she whispered, her voice heavy. "You could have walked past like everyone else." The human looked at her, his face calm but tired. "I could have," he said, "but I didn't." Her eyes searched his as if trying to find a lie, but found none. "Why?" she asked, softly. "Why risk your life for me?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment he said nothing. Then he answered, his voice low. "Because once, long ago, someone saved me when I was nothing, and I swore I would do the same if I ever had the chance." Her lips trembled and she turned her face away. The fire in her chest was not just fear anymore, it was something new, something painful and strange, hope. She had buried hope long ago, locked it away so it would not break her. But now, sitting beside him, sharing food, hearing those words, she felt it stirring again. A loud crack outside made them both freeze. The human stood quickly, knife ready, his eyes scanning the shadows. The girl held her breath, her body stiff, but after a long moment the sound faded. Only the whisper of wind remained. He lowered his weapon, but did not relax. "They will not stop searching," he said quietly. They want to make an example of us. The girl's voice broke. Then we will never escape. He turned to her, his face hard but steady. We will. Because we have to. The hours passed slowly, the night crawling with danger. The girl leaned against the wall, her eyes heavy. With exhaustion, she had not meant to close them, but her body betrayed her. Her head dropped onto the human's shoulder, soft and unplanned. He glanced at her but did not move, letting her rest. Her breathing slowed, and for the first time in days she slept without chains around her. The human stayed awake, his eyes on the door. His arm throbbed where blood had dried against torn cloth. But he did not care. The weight on his shoulder reminded him why he fought. He had lived a life of loneliness, wandering from place to place. Now beside him was someone who depended on him, someone fragile but alive, and that gave him more strength than food or sleep ever could. Near dawn, faint light crept through the cracks of the ruined walls. The girl stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She blinked in confusion at first, then remembered where she was. Her gaze lifted to his, and she whispered, "You stayed awake?" He gave a tired smile. Someone had to. Her lips curved in the faintest smile, small and broken but real. In that moment, the bond between them grew stronger than the chains of fear, but peace lasted only a breath. The sound of boots echoed again, this time closer. The girl stiffened, her hand clutching. His coat, the human rose, his knife steady, his eyes sharp. "They found us," he said, his voice calm but cold. The girl's heart pounded, and tears blurred her vision. "Then this is the end," she whispered. He shook his head slowly. "No, this is only the beginning." The door rattled as heavy fists struck it. Shadows fell across the broken walls, weapons glowing outside. The human stood tall, blocking the girl with his body. She pressed against the wall, her chest tight with fear. The fragile hope inside her flickered like a candle. Would it survive the storm about to break, or would it be snuffed out forever? The door shook under the force of the blows. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling, and the girl's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her back against the wall, her fingers digging into the stone. The human stood in front of her, knife in hand, his shadow tall against the ruined door. Outside, deep voices growled orders, and the sound of weapons charging filled the air. "They are here for me," the girl whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Her voice broke as she added, "If you give me back, maybe they will let you live." The human did not turn, his jaw tight. "I will not give you back," he said firmly. "Not now. Not ever." Tears rolled down her face because no one had ever spoken for her like that before. With a loud crack, the wooden door splintered and light spilled into the dark room. 4 enforcers stepped inside, their armor glowing faintly, their faces hidden behind cruel masks. Energy blades hummed in their hands, buzzing with deadly power. The girl shrank against the wall, her body trembling so hard she thought her bones would break. The human raised his knife, small compared to their weapons, but his grip did not shake. One enforcer laughed, his voice metallic. "You cannot fight. Us human? Give up the meat and we will make your end quick." The human's eyes narrowed, his voice calm but sharp. "She is not meat, and I am not giving her to you." The room fell silent for a breath, the tension thick enough to choke. Then the first enforcer lunged, his blade glowing as it sliced through the air. The human sidestepped, the blade missing him by inches. He drove his knife into the enforcer's side, sparks flying as it struck the armor. The enforcer roared in pain, stumbling back. The girl gasped, her hands covering her mouth. She had never seen anyone fight for her before. The other 3 moved, in their blades striking. The room filled with flashes of light and the crash of steel against stone. The human ducked, blocked, and struck back with desperate speed. His knife slashed across one enemy's arm, forcing him to drop his weapon. But another blow caught the human's shoulder, searing pain burning through him. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The girl cried out, her heart twisting as she saw blood on his coat. She grabbed a broken stone from the floor, her small hands clutching it tight. When one enforcer raised his blade to strike the human's back, she threw the way. Stone with all her strength, it hit the alien's mask with a sharp crack, making him stumble. The human spun and drove his knife into the gap in the armor, the enforcer collapsing with a heavy thud. The girl's chest heaved, her eyes wide with fear and shock. She had never fought before, but tonight fear gave her courage. The human glanced at her for only a second, his voice harsh. "Stay down," he ordered, before turning back to the fight. Two enforcers remained, circling him like wolves. Their blades glowed brighter, humming with deadly energy. The human's breaths grew heavy, his movements slower from blood loss, but his eyes stayed sharp, his will unbroken. One enforcer lunged again, their blades clashing, sparks flying across the ruined room. The girl crawled closer to the wall, searching for anything she could use. Her hands closed around a rusted pipe, heavy and jagged. Her body shook, but she held it tight. The human blocked one strike but was caught by the second, the blade slicing across his leg. He staggered, nearly falling, the pain fierce. The girl saw the opening, saw the enforcer lift his weapon high for the final strike. Before fear could stop her, she screamed and swung the pipe with all her strength. It slammed into the enforcer's knee, making him stumble. The human seized the chance, plunging his knife into the alien's chest, the glow fading from his armor as he fell. Only one enforcer remained, his mask tilted as he studied them. "You fight hard for meat," he hissed, his voice dripping with contempt. The human wiped blood from his eyes, his knife steady. "She is not meat," he growled. "She is life, and I will protect her." The last enforcer lunged with furious speed, his blade crashing down. The human blocked, his arms shaking from the force. The two struggled, blades locked, their faces inches apart. The girl, her body aching, lifted the pipe again and struck the enforcer's back. It was not strong enough to kill, but strong enough to distract. The human twisted, driving his knife deep into the enforcer's side. The alien gasped, stumbled, then fell heavily to the ground. Silence filled the room at last, broken only by the girl's ragged breathing and the human's heavy gasps. The floor was stained with blood, the walls scarred by energy burns. The human dropped to one knee, his body trembling, his wounds deep. The girl crawled to his side, tears streaming down her face. "You are hurt, so badly hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. He forced a weak smile, his hand brushing her shoulder. "I'm still here," he said, his voice faint but steady. "And so are you." She clutched his hand, her tears falling. Onto his skin. "You fought for me, you bled for me, no one has ever done that." Her words shook, but her eyes burned with something new, faith. The human looked at her, his breath slow, his eyes heavy. "This is not the end," he whispered. "But freedom always has a price." Outside, the night was quiet, but they both knew it would not last. More hunters would come, more enemies would rise. Yet in that ruined shelter, surrounded by fallen foes, their bond had been forged in blood and fire, and neither would face the storm alone again. The room was heavy with silence. The broken walls smelled of smoke and blood, the floor scattered with the bodies of fallen enforcers. The girl knelt beside the human, clutching his hand as if letting go would end everything. His breath came slow, his wounds deep, but his eyes stayed fixed on her. She whispered through tears, "You saved me, but now you are dying because of me." The human gave a weak shake of his head. "I am not dead yet," he murmured, forcing a small smile. His voice was soft but steady, carrying more strength than his body should have left. "You are free now, and that makes every wound worth it." The girl's chest tightened, her heart aching at his words. She had never been free, never been anything more than property. Now this man, a stranger, had fought and bled to give her a life she thought impossible. But the danger was not over. Outside, the faint echo of boots carried through the ruins. The market would not forgive. This night more hunters would come, stronger than the ones they had faced. The girl trembled, her hands clutching his torn coat. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice full of fear. The human pulled himself to his feet with effort, his knife still in his hand. "We move," he said firmly. "As long as we breathe, we move." He leaned against the cracked wall, his wounds slowing him. The girl wrapped her small arms around him, helping him stand. Her strength was little, but her will was fierce. Together they stepped into the broken streets, leaving the shelter behind. The night air was cold, the sky dark with heavy clouds. The city seemed endless, full of dangers and unseen eyes, but for the first time, the girl did not feel completely alone. They moved slowly, hiding in the shadows, avoiding the glow of patrol lights. The human's steps were heavy, his blood leaving faint trails on the stones. The girl's heart pounded each time he stumbled, each time she thought he would fall. But he kept going, his hand steady on her shoulder, guiding her through the maze of ruins. Every step was a fight against pain, every breath a reminder of how close death was. Finally, they reached the edge of the ruined quarter. Beyond it lay the wastelands, vast empty stretches where the market had no power. The girl looked out at the dark horizon, fear and hope colliding inside her. "Out there," she whispered, "is it really freedom?" The human followed her gaze, his face pale but his eyes bright. "Freedom is not a place," he said softly. "Freedom is the choice we make to keep moving forward no matter who tries to chain us." The words burned into her heart, deeper than any wound. For the first time she believed them. Her lips trembled, and she whispered, "Then I will not stop moving. Not while you are with me." Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Shadows spread across the broken walls as fresh hunters entered the ruins. The girl's fear returned, but so did her resolve. She tightened her grip on the human's arm, helping him walk faster. He leaned on her, his strength fading, but his spirit burning brighter than the torches chasing them. At the edge of the ruins, they stopped for a breath. The human staggered, nearly falling, but the girl caught him, her small frame trembling under his weight. Tears filled her eyes as she begged, "Please don't leave me, not after all this." He placed a bloodied hand on her cheek, his voice gentle. "I am not leaving, not while I can still take one more step." Her tears spilled freely, but in her eyes shone the same fire he carried. They stepped into the wastelands, the wind cold against their faces. The hunters' shouts grew faint behind them, their lights swallowed by the ruins. The night stretched wide and endless, dangerous but open. Every step away from the market was a step toward something neither had known before. Choice, as dawn broke, a pale light spread across the horizon. The girl turned to look at him, her voice trembling. "You gave me life when the galaxy gave me death." The human, though weak and weary, met her eyes and said, "And you gave me a reason to fight when I had none." They walked on side by side, their silhouettes small against the rising sun. The scars of the night would never leave them. The dangers of the future would never stop chasing them. But together, they carried something stronger than chains, stronger than fear. A bond born of survival, of sacrifice, of choice. And though the price of freedom was heavy, it was theirs.